Hi everyone. So I thought I would confuse both you and myself a little bit here by talking about some channeling that I did the other day, where my guides were bringing through information about the structure of dimensions. They have spoken on this a few times, and it's quite a strange thing to get your head round. It's something that when I'm channeling the information or tuned into it through a meditation, it becomes quite easy to perceive because it drops in at soul level, and sometimes I'll get a few hours later, I'll suddenly have a download of information and understand it in a different way. But it can be a difficult thing to try and relay to others, particularly when I'm not actually in a channeling state. So they have I had understand it before that there were 12 dimensions, and that within each of those dimensions there are 12 layers of frequency, basically, which we call dimensions as humans. But within each layer of frequency there are then multiple dimensions. So for example, in our between sort of 3 and the 4D, which is what we experience as humans, possibly even 2 to 4, I'm not sure, but there we have our human experience and our human reality, and that is also where you get the stories from folklore of fairies, of yetis, of all these kind of different mythical creatures, that they actually exist. It's just they exist within a different dimension, but in this frequency. So that's one of the aspects to it. But they also said to me the other day, I was experiencing a certain kind of energy, and these were from very high frequency beings, and I asked them which dimension they were in. They said in the 12th, and I said, is there a 13th? And they said, yes, it's source energy. So they were explaining that the 13th dimension is that creative source, just pure light energy, which then can crystallize things into form, and that's where the dimensions 12 downwards come into it. And they also explained that actually that's why the number 13 has been turned on its head to be a negative number with a lot of negativity and negative connotations, because it was maybe people who were a little bit oppressive in their nature that didn't want humans to start tapping into the idea of the number 13, because it would eventually cause them to awaken to this higher energy and start to realize that it was there and that they were part of it, and that they actually had this kind of divine spark within themselves. So number 13, I was born on 13, so it's always been a good one for me anyway, but I treat it as a lucky number and not as an unlucky number. They also explained to me, and this was a new concept which I need to refamiliarize myself with again, I think, but I'm going to share it with you anyway. They were explaining that where in our human perception we see the different layers of frequency as from 1 to 12, so we see them ascending. And that's why we interpret spiritual growth as an ascension process. But that actually, from the kind of quantum level and from the perspective of those in the cosmos, a bit like the idea of past lives, they have explained that time is non-linear, so all of our lives run concurrently. They're not actually happening in the past or future, it's just how we perceive them. The dimensions, it's more like, instead of layers that ascend or descend, whichever way you're going, it's like a circle. And so if you imagine a clock, and then there's the point in the center, and the point in the center is the energy that's connected to unconditional love, so also connected to the heart chakra. So that's like the middle point, but instead of being the middle of a frequency going up or down, it's actually in the center of this circle. And that to access different layers or different resonances, different frequencies, you go through the heart center or through that frequency. and that can bring you out in different dimensions, basically different levels of frequency. So if you just imagine that kind of clock face with that central point, and say you're wherever you are, you're in the third, you kind of have to go through the heart center, and that can pop you up into the seventh or wherever it is you want to go. And a lot of us do that through meditation or astral travel. There's various means of doing that. But when you are beings of higher frequency, it's much easier to perceive this idea and to travel through the heart and back into the various dimensions, but in a more physical form, or at least in light body, and not needing to kind of leave a physical form behind. Whereas the lower levels, so from sort of sixth downwards, we're still very much in physical incarnation, and also a little bit more removed from the connection with source energy. So it takes us a lot more to be able to consciously make those shifts to dimension hop, basically. So I'm going to come back to this another time when I've deepened my understanding. And as with anything that I get through from my guides, I have to let it process, and sometimes I have to reevaluate how I understand things as they give me new information, and they give us new information depending on what we are ready to actually take, what we can actually resonate with, what we're able to perceive. And so I think that's why, it's important, if you are doing your own spiritual journey or listening to others that are, to understand that it's okay if the experience changes, or if the perception of how something is kind of structured or works changes, because you are constantly in a state of renewal and growth. And if you can't allow yourself to adapt to different ideas as they come through, then you'll be stuck, because you're not able to kind of allow those shifts in frequency for yourself. So just keep an open mind, let it flow in, whatever's coming to you, how it feels for you. Have you tried connecting with your own guides and asking them about this stuff?